Not a good start to the season, guys. Getting blown out on your home court for the season opener is ugly. That said, you're going to be surprised when I try to do my best to give some positive takeaways from this game while also still being critical of how this team performed tonight, because it was not good. So let's talk about it further. Also, a big shout out to the sponsor of today's video, Factor, but more on that in a little bit. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Now, I know Bulls fans are pissed. I follow the discussions and the discourse on Twitter, and they do have every right to be annoyed. I myself was rolling my eyes most of this game every time you saw the Thunder knock down a wide open three. And there are definitely valid concerns and things we saw last season that are repeating into this one. And I know some are going to come in here and rip me apart in the comments saying, what can you possibly take away from this game that was good? Well, first and foremost, I am very high on the Oklahoma City Thunder this year. I know I haven't said it on this channel, but I've probably mentioned it a good 4 or 5 times on the NBA channel, literally making an entire video of the Oklahoma City Thunder on how they're going to be the biggest surprise team of the season. My bold take, which honestly I don't think it's that bold, is that the Thunder are going to finish 6th in the Western Conference, finishing 6th in a stacked West. This is a very good, young, and talented Thunder team with a roster that complements each other very well. A budding superstar in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who is picked up right where he left off in his first team All-NBA last season. A very high IQ, crafty point guard in Josh Giddey. A young player that has massive two-way potential in Jalen Williams. And what most believe to be a generational talent in Chet Holmgren. This is a stacked team, a hungry, young, fast team that is going to come ready to play hard every night. So that's one. I know some people look at it like this is a Thunder team that is rebuilding and finished 10th in the West last year. Nah, this team is way better than that. They're going to be scary good not only this season but in future seasons. The other positives that I take away from this game, which I know it's weird to say, but I actually liked what I saw from the Bulls on offense tonight. Like, what have we talked about all offseason long? The Bulls need to play faster, they need to attack the paint, they need to spread the floor, move the ball, and shoot more threes. I mean, despite some stagnant offense here and there, which I'll talk about because that was a problem. But for the most part, the Bulls actually played quicker in getting the ball out in transition. They turned defense into offense. They moved the ball better rather than playing ISO like they did a lot last season. And wouldn't you know it, they took a considerable more amount of threes. Last season, the Bulls averaged 28 threes attempted per game, the lowest in the league. Tonight, they took 42 threes. The Warriors took the most threes last year at a little over 43 per game. The Bulls took 42 tonight. The problem, though, is the Bulls couldn't hit their shots, and some of them being wide open looks. Bulls shot 12 for 42 from deep, which was 28%. That's bad. But here's the thing. I'm not as concerned about the Bulls having a bad night shooting it from deep. Last season, I was more concerned about how they were generating threes. They were taking poor shots, contested step-back threes in isolation, guys standing around not getting good looks, and they were making it way more difficult than it had to be to knock down a three. And it's part of the reason they didn't take very many, because they weren't generating the most efficient threes. Tonight, the Bulls were getting great looks. The way they were creating threes was some of the best that I've seen compared to anything that we saw last year. And I know what some people are going to harp on is, well, who cares if they can't make them? It's one game, guys. It's one game. Now, if we continue to see the Bulls shooting threes at 30% on over 40 plus attempts per game, 50 to 20 games into the season, yeah, that's a big problem. But the Bulls aren't going to be shooting less than 30% from 3 very often. Zach Lavine is not going to be going 2 for 9 from deep every night. Patrick Williams, who shot 41% last season on 4 attempts per game, isn't going to go 0 for 4 from 3. Coby White isn't going to go 2 for 7. Hell, Javon Carter isn't going to go 1 for 4 for a guy who shot it at 42% last year for the Bucks in 4 attempts. And then, on the flip side, the Bulls' opponent, they're not going to shoot damn near 50% from 3 every game. Statistically speaking, it is actually very rare for teams to shoot 50% from 3 on that kind of volume that the Thunder put up tonight. Now, you can blame some of that on the Bulls' defense, which allowed for so many open looks for the Thunder, and the Bulls' defense was actually not that great tonight. But even then, their opponent more often than not is not going to be able to shoot lights out from 3 like that, even when they are getting open looks. And that really killed the Bulls in this one, because this was a back and forth game until really the end of the third, when the Thunder just started hitting everything that they were throwing up. Before I get into the rest of the video though, guys, you're going to want to hear this special offer from today's sponsor, the video Factor. Factor makes meeting your nutrition goals easier than ever before by delivering fresh, never frozen, dietitian-approved meals right to your doorstep. Look, if you're too busy this fall, especially with the start of the NBA season, but want to make sure you're still eating well, with Factor, skip the extra trip to the grocery store and the chopping, prepping, and cleaning up too, while still getting the flavor and nutritional quality that you need. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are already in just 2 minutes, so all you have to do is heat and enjoy. You guys know I have 2 kids, a full-time job, as well as this YouTube channel, and I have to say, these meals help me out greatly in reducing cooking time, but still being able to eat well with high-quality ingredients. Need an extra boost to support your wellness goals and feel your best as you tackle a busy fall season? Try their Protein Plus meals with 30 grams of protein or more per serving, and guys, they're offering viewers of this channel an exclusive offer. Head to factor75.com or click the link below and use the code BULLCENTRAL50 to get 50% off your first Factor box. Let me know what you think of the meals, and thanks again to Factor for sponsoring this video. Now, looking at some of the other positives, which I guess could also be viewed as negatives for this game anyway. Negative just purely looking at it from a single game perspective, but positive from a long-term standpoint. One is that Zach Lavine had a terrible game. That's not going to happen very often, especially after the kind of performance he had in the preseason where he was looking locked in and super efficient on offense. Zach had 16 points tonight on 4 for 16 from the floor, 2 for 9 from 3 with 4 turnovers. He also got into some early foul trouble, which wasn't good and didn't help the rest of his game overall. It was good seeing him get to the foul line a bit more, 6 for 6 from the line, but overall a very poor game from Zach. What concerned me more than anything, because we know Zach will get back to being a more efficient scorer, but was Zach's decision making. Some of his early fouls were really bad, very ill-timed. He was turning the ball over and then also completely deviating from the whole offensive plan at times, doing ISO step-back mid-range jumpers where guys were cutting to the basket. He just wasn't finding them. That cannot happen. And I'm just hoping this was a temporary mental lapse from Zach and shaking off some early season rust. The same can also be said about Coby White. He didn't really have the best game either. He looked solid in the first half and was aggressive in attacking the paint and improved passing. He took care of the ball very well, not a single turnover. And while I like some of the looks Coby was able to generate for others, and he would have had more assists if guys actually hit their shots, but he wasn't getting the best looks for himself. 4 for 14 from the field, 15 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. And then Vucevic and DeMar, they just weren't good tonight. I mean, Vucevic, I guess, was decent because he stepped it up in other ways despite not being the biggest presence on offense. 11 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, and 2 blocks. He was active and aggressive, but he was also fumbling the ball in the paint and creating turnovers. And then DeMar, I mean, dude was a team worst minus 29 on the night. Shot 9 for 20. Started being the old DeMar in the second half when I thought the first half he actually did a pretty good job at getting other guys involved and not trying to take over the game. But yeah, not a good game for DeMar DeRozan. And I guess the positive thing from that is he's not always going to have bad games like this. It's rare for DeMar to have a bad game in this manner. Now, that said, he does need to change his overall philosophy and how he approaches offense and buying into the system that the Bulls are trying to implement, which we saw in the first half, but overall, you're not going to see games like this from DeMar consistently. Patrick Williams, I mean, the way he started out the game, you thought, okay, Pat, the prove it year is in full effect. And then it just kind of fell off after that in the first quarter. I mean, you kind of look across the board, and really the only player who had a good game tonight was Torrey Craig. He was hustling, he was fighting for rebounds, playing tough defense, and he was knocking down threes, which is what the Bulls need from him. 11 points, 7 rebounds, 3 for 4 from deep. Need to see more of that of him coming off the bench. Now, I will say, I do have concerns about some of the rotations Billy Donovan went with tonight. I mean, having DeMar in with all those defenders in the second unit, there's just not enough shot creation in that group, which leads a lot of standing around and just watching DeMar do his thing. We saw that last year, and it doesn't work because DeMar has to be damn near perfect on offense in those situations for the Bulls to actually win games. I still would like to see Craig in the starting lineup and have Pat come off the bench and be more of a primary scorer in that second unit, because the second unit is pretty void of scoring. And it might give Pat the confidence and development necessary to have him being a scorer coming off the bench. And we saw him do well in that type of role when last season he was mainly coming off the bench post All-Star break. But anyway, yes, there are still issues with this team. They need to get to the foul line more. They need to not get down on themselves when the opposing team goes on a run and they lose momentum. Like mental toughness, where is that? Still not seeing it. And they also need to actually knock down their threes, because that's an issue with how poorly they shot tonight. Oh, and just please stop allowing so many open threes to your opponent. So yes, it wasn't a good game. It wasn't a good game for most players involved for the Bulls. But the positives that I take away from this is, one, the Thunder are going to be really good this season. Two, they're not going to be this inefficient on offense, and not all of their big three are going to have bad games like this. Very rare for all three of them to have bad games at once. Anyway, let me know what you guys thought of the game. Let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.